In this age of gender confusion, it's difficult to find advice you can trust to help protect your child from those who would seek to unduly influence them, setting them up to be manipulated and exploited. On Unmasking the Trans Movement, we discuss, educate, and deliver the info parents want and need to help their children, grandchildren, and even themselves.
Welcome to Unmasking the Trans Movement. Now, here's your host, Brad Wilder.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Unmasking the Trans Movement with your host, John Euler. Yes, we are live tonight. We've got a great show lined up for you. We are going to have a very special guest. John is standing by along with that special guest. He will introduce that special guest in just a minute. Tonight we're going to talk about a variety of issues that are plaguing Canada, one of them being the trans movement. This is something that they're pushing all kinds of regulations, new laws, and new ways of doing things with regards to the way we can speak and discuss the issue. We're going to get into not only the issues themselves at hand tonight, but we're also going to talk to an individual who's been outspoken the whole way along. Well, a couple of individuals who have been outspoken all the way along, John Euler, of course, being one of them. But for the last 4 years, Canada's faced some pretty tough challenges with regards to the trans movement. And tonight we're going to discuss what's going on here in Canada, whether it be with internal politics that seems to be continuing to bureaucratically get in our way, to the laws, the legal system, the justice system, which again is causing us issues as well and creating all kinds of new ways that we have to try to live. And it's going to cause problems because once you bring in something like this, it's called tyranny. And that's something that I know I don't want to live under here in Canada. But once you start limiting freedom of speech, making people do things that they don't typically want to do, that's where, things get dicey. When the guy down the street puts on a dress and he walks over to my house and says, I have to wear a dress next, I draw the line there. But they're trying to force that on us. We're going to discuss more than that tonight, but that issue itself alone is something here in Manitoba, which is called Bill 43. You can find more information on that, not only on Unmasking the Trans Movement, but you can find it as well on Wake Up Canada News, one of my other podcasts. So without a doubt, let's get into it tonight with Mr. John Euler. Bring him in along with his special guest, none other than a legend, a man and myth, Barry Neufeld. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. It's Sunday night. We were supposed to have Dr. Ann with us. Unfortunately, she is unable to join us tonight, but that's okay. We know that she is actually stepping up in her own way. I don't know if you guys know this or not, but as of tomorrow, Dr. Ann will hopefully become a brand new politician right here in Canada. And if that's the case, then congratulations to her. Tomorrow we'll tell the tale, though. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Brad, thank you as always. Barry, welcome.
Thank you.
And Barry, it's been long overdue for us to connect face to face. We certainly have known one another now for a number of years. And I don't have too many heroes, but I don't know if I ever told you this. You are one of my heroes. You have taken arrows. You talk about a David and Goliath. And one thing I want to mention right off the bat is, and maybe this is where part of where you and I have a passion for protecting women and children, is not only am I a sex offender treatment provider, but you were a probation officer, a supervisor over sex offenders. And then you and I together tonight as well can really sound with knowledge a clarion call for the reasons why we are very concerned about what is going on, because little does the public know that behind the scenes, these guys are not mild-mannered. The ones that we have concerns about, those that are trying to gain access into the private spaces and also access to kids. What we know is what the public often doesn't know. And so that's very pertinent to our conversation. So welcome, Barry Neufeld.
Yes, well, John, of all the people who have stood against this gender ideology, I seem to have more in common with you, because when I first heard about it, my initial reaction was a red flag based on my experience of working with sex offenders. It wasn't a religious motivation. I thought maybe it's an unintended side effect, but this ideology is going to groom children to make them more readily available to, they now call them minor attracted persons. Because for years I had heard,
Barry,
I had heard,
that's a misnomer, isn't it? It's the rebranding of pedophilia.
it is. But for years, I had heard pedophiles use this thing of confusing a child about their gender in order to get access to their intimate spaces. And now it was being promoted in the schools. And that's when the red light first went on. I first found out about it in August of 2017. I studied it for a couple of months. There wasn't much available at the time. But it wasn't until October 23rd, 2017, I came out and said that transitioning children was child abuse. And that's when the internet went nuts.
Matter of fact, that's a perfect segue to, I have a clip that will describe what you said. What you said was extremely well put. And so we're going to play that video. I think it is right here. So without any further ado, let's play this one. If I can find it, sorry, in the background, I have a number of these set up. Brad, how does that look? Good? Okay, so this will give background to what we're going to see as your background and what has transpired, because ultimately people have taken you to court.
Hi everyone, Lindsay Shepard here, Investigative Journalism Fellow with True North. You may have noticed the name of Barry Neufeld in the news recently, but who is he? If you haven't been following this case, I am going to explain it all here. A little over 2 years ago, in October 2017, Chilliwack School Trustee Barry Neufeld felt obligated to speak out against SOGI 123, that's Sexual Orientation and Gender Identity 123, a resource kit for BC and Alberta teachers to teach children and youth about LGBTQ issues. In a move that would drastically shake up his career, Neufeld posted the following on Facebook. Okay, so I can no longer sit on my hands. I have to stand up and be counted. A few years ago, the Liberal Minister of Education instigated a new curriculum supposedly to combat bullying, but it quickly morphed into a weapon of propaganda to infuse every subject matter from K to 12 with the latest fad, gender theory. The Sexual Orientation and Gender Identity, SOGI, program instructs children that gender is not biologically determined, but is a social construct. At the risk of being labeled a bigoted homophobe, I have to say that I support traditional family values, and I agree with the College of Pediatricians that allowing little children to choose to change gender is nothing short of child abuse. But now the BC Ministry of Education has embraced the LGBTQ lobby and is forcing this biologically absurd theory on children in our schools. Children are being taught that heterosexual marriage is no longer the norm. Teachers must not refer to boys and girls. They're merely students. They cannot refer to mothers and fathers either. Increasing numbers of children are growing up in homes with same-sex parents. If this represents the values of Canadian society, count me out. I belong in a country like Russia or Paraguay, which recently had the guts to stand up to these radical cultural nihilists.
There we go. And I couldn't agree with you more, Barry. So that's the post that started it all against you.
Yes. And I've since become friends with Lindsay Shepard. I just ran into her in Conservative Convention in Nanaimo recently. She also went through some trouble because she showed a Jordan Peterson clip to her tutorial class at Wilfrid Laurier University in Waterloo, and she really got beat up as well. but she's emerged, and hopefully I will emerge as well.
Right. Well, let me do another clip right now. Again, we're going to help people be brought up to speed in what's happened for you, because you were taken to court, the highest court of the land, and you have been sued by the what is it, the Civil Rights Tribunal? What are they calling human rights?
Human Rights Tribunal.
In
The
Canada.
teachers claimed that I was a danger to their employees, and so they laid a complaint with the Human Rights Tribunal. That's dragged on for 7 years, and they still haven't come to a conclusion. I'm back in front of them on the 21st of May.
And that's what these radical activists do. They actually went after, on 2 occasions, my professional counseling license. The last attempt just failed. But here is, so they descended upon you, and we're going to show another clip of how you were targeted. And sorry for the delay here. We'll get that one up, and we're going to bring, sorry, I should be more prepared here. Okay.
What does not be on the map for being a town that is backward.
Parents pushed to get a school trustee to resign.
This is CTV News with Norma Green.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. A school trustee is facing increasing pressure to resign after what many parents consider to be hateful, transphobic comments. Tonight, parents and supporters rallied and asked some tough questions. Our Penny Daflos was there and has our top story.
Parents, friends, and allies showed up en masse to show Chilliwack school trustees they're serious about gay and trans rights.
This is about educating teachers. It's about educating humanity.
Inside, tensions flared with security stepping in.
We have a right to assemble and we have a right to protest.
At the first school board meeting of the year, trustees faced tough questions and comments.
I don't feel safe giving you my name or identifying my child.
Centered on controversial trustee Barry Neufeld. The chair didn't say much.
I can't comment on that right now because we're in the middle of some legal advice.
Neufeld came under the microscope last year after making explosive comments against the province's new sexual and gender identity program and parents of transgender students.
Questioning the use of puberty blockers, hormone therapy, and gender reassignment is found used.
Some parents say they've been harassed by Neufeld supporters for criticizing him.
They basically threatened to have my business boycotted.
Brad Dirks has a transgender son and fears bigots across the region will be emboldened by Neufeld's comments.
When you're an elected official or a person in a position of authority or power, and you use that to share discriminatory comments or hateful views, I think it gives permission to other adults and people to think that it's okay, and it's not okay.
We would like the other trustees to stand up and censure him.
Rally organizers say this gathering was about showing support for kids of all orientations from adults of all orientations.
Myself, I'm actually like married to a high school sweetheart, straight girl here. This is my ally.
Allies who pledged to continue pressuring the board both inside and outside its meetings. Penny Daflos, CTV News, Chilliwack.
And again, Barry, we're not anti anything. We are pro the protection of women and children on this program, and so are you.
Well, I remember that night very well because Chilliwack used to be considered a very conservative Bible Belt community. But for that rally, they brought in busloads of activists from metropolitan Vancouver to swell their ranks. And they were shouting and screaming that Neufeld is a dinosaur, Neufeld go home. And
so let me clarify or ask for your clarification. Sorry. Are you saying that they bust people from outside the school district into the school district to line up and protest?
Yes, they meant. I doubt if there was a dozen people there from the community of Chilliwack. There was over 150 out-of-towners. And the leader of that protest, Willow Richeld, she continued to lead the charge against me. And in the following election, she was elected and even became the board chair of the Chilliwack School Board. managing to surround herself with four other trustees on a school board in Canada. They're publicly elected the same time that we elect mayor and councillor. And she had 5 radicals against 2 of us conservatives.
And I noted in that news article, or not article, the news piece there, the guy said, they threatened to boycott my business. I find it ironic since that is what the radicals have mastered the art of doing, right? If you dare speak up on behalf of parental rights or the protection of women and children, they will descend upon you.
Yes, that man Brad Dirks was very vocal against me for about a year, and he's just totally disappeared. I don't know whatever happened to him. The last I heard, he had to pay out of his own pocket to get his daughter a mastectomy.
And what I've said is this: any adult that pushes this aggressively with energy ultimately needs to have their online activities, their electronics, and their financial records and phone GPS tracking. They need to have them investigated because inevitably there's something going on. And again, you and I, as former, me as a sex offender treatment provider, you as a supervisor of sex offenders, in the parole end of things, we understand why someone has an undue interest in kids' sex and sexuality if they don't happen to be blood relation. So we have concerns.
Yes.
Well, let's continue setting the stage, Barry, to talk about who took you to court. And we're also here to ask people to support you, not just morally and emotionally, but also financially, because you have now been fined significantly. You've taken the arrows. So I want to, I'll bring up behind the scenes what has happened. More negative press, of course, but this is Ogre, last name. I don't speak French, so I guess I'm in a position not to, if somebody complains that I'm not being sensitive, but this is a biological male, and he's a cross-dressing guy. He dresses up in women's underwear and drag, and he's been a vocal opponent of yours.
Welcome back to Steele and Vance. We got a bunch to talk about as we.
Oh, I'm sorry, I have the wrong one. My apologies. I've got a few up there. We're going to actually see that one momentarily. I think I clicked on the wrong one. Okay, here is, and I'm not making fun of it. Barry, with the French pronunciation, since I'm from the States, how do you pronounce his last name?
I usually pronounce it Morgan Auger.
Okay, but it looks like Ogre. Okay,
yes.
moving along.
An elected school trustee, this is an issue. This is not acceptable.
Backlash after a Chilliwack school trustee posted a COVID-19 conspiracy and transphobic comments on.
Okay, now notice for a moment, they added the COVID conspiracy. Well, what have we found out about that and all the jabs? So Barry, you were right about that, spot on. You were one of the few willing to speak up, so they combined this. This is when Canada was pushing the jab, and we know how many people are dying. Brad has become very familiar with his program, Ask the Funeral Director. Off camera, he was talking about how many people he sees with clots in their veins from the embalming process, and it was not a conspiracy.
Facebook page.
This is CTV News with Nafisa Kareem.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. We begin with some disturbing comments made by a Chilliwack school trustee about the COVID-19 crisis. Barry Neufeld took to Facebook. Again, look at the bias. Barry, you've been under, this is all over the news in Canada. So the amount of pressure that has been brought to bear against you, I mean, disturbing. There's an objective news reporter. questioned the World Health Organization's response to the pandemic. He also made some transphobic comments about Canada's top doctor. And as CTV's Ahmad Agahi reports, this isn't the first time Neufeld has been in hot water over his comments on social media.
It's a Facebook post that shocked many who saw it, including trans right activist Morgane O'Shea.
Because these are not factors that are supposed to be an issue today, except in the darkest, worst hearts.
The comments came from a controversial Chilliwack School Board Trustee Barry Neufeld. The Saturday night rant is being condemned by his colleagues.
I mean, there's a lot to unpack there. But my initial reaction is this is definitely something a school trustee should be posting.
Neufeld, an elected official, is critical of the World Health Organization, calling it corrupt. He also questions Dr. Theresa Tam's sexual orientation, writing, quote, spending a major portion of their life deceiving people as to who she or he truly is. Why should we believe anything he or she says?
Basically taking shots at her credibility. If she were transgender, it's actually pretty disgusting.
It's not the first time Neufeld has made contentious public comments.
It's concerning to me. He's an elected official.
In October of 2017, Neufeld wrote on Facebook that allowing children to change gender is nothing short of child abuse. The following January, advocates protested inside and outside a Chilliwack School Board meeting.
We would like the other trustees to stand up and censure him.
Barry Neufeld did not respond to our calls and emails on Sunday regarding this Facebook comment. In fact, we've only been able to reach him once at his house in 2017.
No comment. No.
Whoever voted for Mr. Neufeld last time around should be shaking their head in shame.
Neufeld remains a school board trustee until at least 2022. Ahmad Agahi, CTV News, Vancouver.
Barry, they obviously came to your home. Talk about invasive. Any comments on that one? You've been deluged by all of this.
Well, you know, I was really worried that I might have protesters in front of my home. And those were the only people that showed up. And I wasn't in any mood to give them any interview because I knew whatever I said, they would twist it. Throughout the last 7 years, I have continued to be critical of programs and ideas, and I have tried very hard to avoid criticizing individuals. And if I have any regret, the only regret I have is that I sent out our Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Theresa Tam, but never got any complaints from her, but that has come back to haunt me several times.
Well, you know what? I'm in the States, so I can, I'll give my own thoughts on the guy that decided to transition. And isn't it interesting that he is targeting kids? Now, for those that, again, think that this is overblown because they're focusing on trans rights. And by the way, the word trans didn't exist prior to the year 2005. I can tell you that. I want to go to my Facebook page for a moment. I'm sorry, Twitter. And I want to, if people are interested, I do a lot of posting. This is not self-serving. It's just for a source of information. As a matter of fact, if you want to see surgeries, if you want to see transgender affirming care, gender affirming care, there's a good video that I did with Alex Aaron. There we are right there with Brad. Okay, Barry, this is a big part of our concern. We're told there are non-offending pedophiles. They say there's that such men, they give their word, they haven't accessed porn, so they should be believed. Seriously? So do you know any sex offender who would confess prior to getting busted? So we're to trust them, right? Trust that they don't view porn. Okay, again, that sets the backdrop for who these guys are. We're going to listen to Gays Against Groomers for a moment. There's a sex ed summer camp that just recanted because of pressure. But I want to go down to, sorry, everybody, watch your eyes. Where is, or I may not be able to, well, okay. As a matter of fact, everybody watch, close your eyes for a second. I don't want you to get sick because I want you to see, yeah, everybody bear with me because we have, there we go. Okay. As a matter of fact, I have this screenshot, so Okay. Here we go. What I say is this. This is gender affirming care. Kind of cuts through the spin, eh? This was billed as the answer to mental health issues. Sterilize her, make her a big pharma customer for life, and give her a fake penis and tell her she's a dude. Those who push the lie of trans are responsible for this. Those are skin grafts that went to make her fake penis. I ask anybody, you think this helped her mental health issues? While the doctors made $70,000 or more? Barry, what are your thoughts?
You know, every cell in your body is either male or female, and just changing the cosmetic appearance on the outside is not going to change a man into a woman or a woman into a man. That very invasive surgery produces a sex organ that doesn't work, that doesn't experience any pleasurable sensation. It's just there for looks. And when those people take their clothes off and stand naked in front of a mirror, they're not looking at a very pretty sight. And the suicide rate among people who have gone full transition is way higher than for the people of the same age group and gender. I believe it's as much as 12 times as high. It does not bring peace. It does not bring fulfillment. It does not bring joy. You know, first few years of my my battle, I tried to stick to rational and scientific arguments, but more and more, I began to see this as a religious issue, a spiritual issue. I first noticed that the devastation it was causing in families and extended families. Parents were afraid to discourage their child from transitioning because they were threatened with the children might be removed and placed in an environment that would support their transition. Then I discovered that it was tearing extended families apart. Aunts and uncles were getting on both sides of the camp and arguing. I know one extended family, the 16-year-old boy decided he wanted to transition. Grandpa told him that was a dumb idea. So the kid turned all the extended family against Grandpa and Grandma. And nobody showed up for Christmas dinner. Grandma set the table for 22 and nobody showed up. They left Grandpa and Grandma alone, all because of this one kid. And as I began to listen to James Lindsay, who's not a religious person, but is a very effective critique of religious people, I began to see very clearly that this was a religion. It was a religious cult. In the tribunal, there were 4 witnesses that identified as queer. And when they were asked, how do you know there's more than 2 genders? They bowed their heads, they lowered their voices, and they said, because I know. It was a religious dogma to them. And they have no scientific proof, they have no empirical proof, but it's something that they believe with the very bottom of their heart and their soul. And if you don't go along with that, you're a heretic. If you change your mind, if you start to transition and then go back to your natal gender, they treat you as a backslider and an apostate. And it has all the trappings and significance of a religious cult. And our schools are supposed to be based on secular principles. I have no problem with that. But I would argue this gender identity is a very specific religion. Who is the God? Well, they have now decided that God made a mistake, put you in the wrong body. So the real God is yourself. You can become your own creator. You can use medical technology to change the mistakes that were made when you were born. And that's setting a person up as their own deity. And for me, that's a very dark place.
And here you referenced also the suicide rates. And I have said for years, and prior to Canada introducing MAID, Medical Assistance in Dying, that now has become implemented in Canada. The rates of increase are going through the roof. As a matter of fact, Brad, do you want to speak to that? You have a program called Ask the Funeral Director.
I do.
And do you want to talk about what's happened since the implementation of it's really, here in the States, they were going to call it death with dignity, but it's physician-assisted suicide, quite frankly. There's no other way to put it. Talk about what you have seen, what you have heard from the funeral director. You've actually been to one of his locations, and you've heard the stats behind the scenes as far as the medical assistance in dying.
Yeah, I spent the last 7 months working at a funeral home with my partner there that runs the funeral home and is the owner of the business. And I've been overwhelmed with all kinds of emotions along this ride. I've seen from adults to children, it's devastating what's gone on, whether it's been the COVID issue, to where we are today, which is, again, kids just feeling like they're lost. There's a lack of hope moving forward. School has provided them with nothing but confusion and questions, and they're not getting the right answers. And the kids aren't stupid. They know that this is wrong, and they're calling it out too along the way. And teachers are having to deal with that. And I don't know how these teachers sleep at night, or these school board people. I've been fighting the school board since this showed up on my doorstep a very long time ago. But back to the funeral issue. Kids are feeling hopeless this day and age. They've got issues that are stemming right from that classroom, and they're bringing it home with them. That confusion is leading them to think that they don't have much of a future. The laws are being changed. Barry, you know best. They're doing it in British Columbia right now. They're trying to change the law in Manitoba as well with Bill 43, where, they're trying to basically say that you can no longer misgender somebody. And that is going to cause all kinds of things to happen in terms of whether it's fines or possibly jail time. This is ridiculous. Where we are is ridiculous. And the mental health issue is first and foremost, in my opinion, but nobody wants to discuss that except guys like us. Everybody else thinks it's okay to do this and it's just going to be fine going forward. But the kids even know that there's something wrong. The kids are taking their own lives over these issues. They can see that the future is filled with tyranny here in Canada and that our political system is broken. But the medical system is also broken, leaving them no hope. And that is very troubling because we see deaths in the funeral home between the age of 10 and 18 on a regular occurrence. These are kids who are committing suicide because they can't handle the future. And they haven't even experienced the past, let alone experience the future. I'm devastated. They're devastated. Their parents are devastated. As a funeral guy, a funeral director, and that I work with, they're all overwhelmed as well. We can't believe what we're seeing. COVID is just a big part of that as well with everything that's gone on. Yeah, we are pulling the fibrous clots out of people when we're doing the embalming process. That's well documented by many a funeral director all across North America and around the world. They think we're all conspiracy theorists, but we're not. People have said, "Oh, this isn't in my kid's school." Yes, it is. But they'll battle with you tooth and nail, as Barry's seen. They'll fight until they die to get their way. And it's ridiculous that they're putting us all in this position to have to make these kind of decisions. They were fine before. They had a chance before to live whatever dream fantasy world they want to live in without us criticizing. But now I have to stand up. It came to my doorstep. You brought it to my door with my daughter coming out of high school. Are you serious? When a teacher asks if my daughter is lesbian, I got a problem with that. It's none of your business. Even my kid knew to say that. This documentation is coming out of, an administration in the U.S. I did the tracking, Barry, to see where this was all coming from. And it leads back to Hillary Clinton. It leads back to the Obama administration. It leads back to the Bush administration, for that matter. And there's things that have been implemented through the Rothschild and their education that I can't say what I want to say because I'm just going to get myself in trouble. So I'm going to stop right there and hold off on continuing my rant. But the reality is we're in a lot of trouble. We need a lot of help. There's kids that are dying. They're dying over the trans movement. They're dying over the conflict of not knowing what's happening in the world, not having a plain and simple, clear future for anything going forward. And we need to help them. We can't let this happen on our watch. That's the bottom line.
That's right. And these kids then, after buying into a lie, it's called the trans movement. The term trans, again, is manufactured. Brad, we've done many, many programs showing the stats that this never existed prior to the year 2005. It's been strategically crafted. It's a scam scheme. It's a ruse. Nobody's born in the wrong body.
It's $1 trillion business.
It's big business, right? And so you have predators for profit and those that are preying upon the kids. So after you do this damage to these kids, they're already troubled. They have co-occurring disorders, meaning many mental health issues. Brad, we did a 7-part series on what are the red flags of child abuse. So then a child starts down the pathway, the moving sidewalk leads them onto a surgeon's gurney. They then are sterilized. By the time they're doing any surgeries, they've already taken cross-sex hormones, wrong sex hormones. So they're already sterilized. Now, can you imagine that young person, and this is what we're seeing, they get out of high school, they're starting to get off the internet, they don't have many friends, they've been ostracized or have ostracized their family.
Yeah.
And then they awaken too late. And now they find out they're now sterile. They're a big pharma client for life. They were so bold because they became a cult member, Barry, that speaks to the religious issue, that when they awaken, they are devastated. And now they're faced with one of two options, either to humbly begin the process of apologizing to family that they, there's just so many things that they have to do. So many would rather take, unfortunately, a lesser painful route, and they would call it lesser painful, meaning instead of facing the very, very difficult things they're going to have to face, the reality of what they did, what was permitted to happen to them, all they need is a government that will then say, you know what, we've now made it possible for minors under the age of 18. So for minors, if you have a mental health issue, you don't need parental permission. You can sign the form, and then we will administer the lethal dose. And now problem is solved. And Barry, that is what you have also been concerned about. You've been speaking out about it. We're going to look at, it's not just bad press you've gotten, but good people have begun to recognize the courage, and you've received a number of awards. We're going to look at one of those, but you saw this coming. I certainly saw it coming. Talk to us about any and all of what Brad and I just talked about.
Well, our students are more depressed these days than ever before, and they've got a lot to be depressed about. They're getting told that the world is burning up and climate change, everybody's going to die. They've been told that there was going to be another pandemic and we're all going to have to lock down again. They've been told that they might be born in the wrong body. And if a teenage boy has a fleeting crush on another boy, all of a sudden he's worried, oh no, maybe I'm born in the wrong body. Maybe the only way I can fix it is to castrate myself. The kids are being needlessly bothered by all these dire warnings, and it's hard to be an adolescent. My undergraduate degree was in adolescent psychology, and I wrote my thesis on adolescent identity. So this is no new territory for me.
Right. And Barry, that's why you felt compelled to speak out. So you were descended upon by, of course, the liberal media, and you had very little support, but lest people think the news has all just been negative, we want to hear one of the awards that you received. So let me find it in the background. My apologies. There we go. Okay. I'm not quite the audiovisual tech guy that Brad is, so here we go.
Questions are being raised after Chilliwack MP Mark Strahl bestowed an honor on controversial Chilliwack school trustee Barry Neufeld. Neufeld was given the Chilliwack Hope Community Hero Award for, quote, going above and beyond to make the community a better place during the pandemic. However, Neufeld has made headlines for a social media post that suggested the World Health Organization can't be trusted on COVID-19 because it supports abortion rights. Another of his posts falsely suggests Canada's Chief Public Health Officer, Dr. Theresa Tam, is transgender. In a statement, Strahl's office says that everyone who was nominated received an award, and the award was not intended as endorsement of any recipient's personal views.
Okay, so Barry, that doctor, was he born a biological male?
Well, there was a Wikipedia entry that he was born a male in Hong Kong, and that was since deleted. But the interesting thing is, for the head doctor in Canada, that person doesn't have a very impressive resume. They haven't had any major accomplishments. Did a study of treating AIDS, was about, I think, what her thesis was on. And yet she's given so much power over so many people in Canada. So I'm wondering if it was an equity hire. They wanted to have a chief medical officer who had a unique perspective based on intersectionality.
As a journalist, there's no question about that. I agree with Barry wholeheartedly that Wikipedia was taken down. You can go back to the Wayback Machine and pull that information up. There is a side-by-side of Dr. Tam today versus Dr. Tam previously, and they are extremely similar. And I'm sure that if you put the two on top of each other, you would notice that the similarities are exactly the same. So they wouldn't be similarities anymore. It would be similarly perfect.
Yeah.
And Barry, you referenced that this is a religious movement. I would agree in terms of this has all the makings of a cult. Okay, cults have a religious, they have adherents, right? They have a religious nature. They have a leader and you have followers, and they will without question do what the leader tells them to do. And they have the frenetic energy, especially if they believe that their religion, their group, their ideology is, quote unquote, under attack. And it's not rational. And when you look at what goes into this, and Brad, you and I have covered this on many programs on unmasking the trans movement, when you look at how often satanic symbols, there's no other way to put it, you've got pentagrams. As a matter of fact, we showed a flag, a trans flag. So the trans community has joined hands with, as it were, the satanic temple, I believe it is, right? So we saw a trans flag with the emblem of the satanic temple. And I'm sorry, is that it? But anyways, one of the religious factions of Satanism, and the young person posting it said, "Oh, I just got my new flag." So it's a trans flag with the pentagram of this satanic temple, I believe it is, a temple of Satan or something. Sorry. Okay, so there's clear undertones, and of course, Satanism is the ultimate pragmatism. Do what thou will, as long as you don't harm anyone. Well, the question is, by whose standard? So a guy feels like he wants to go have an affair. Well, he'll tell you he's not harming anybody as long as his wife doesn't find out. Okay, so it's the ultimate in selfishness, and that is really at the root of Satanism, but then they get into deviant sex and sexuality. And how do we know that Barry, you are right that it is religious by nature. Well, who else would post this? Not only is this mocking and blasphemous, say they wouldn't do. Can you imagine if they did this about Muhammad? But Barry, before we see this, tell us who this individual is that's playing the role of Jesus.
Well, that looks to me to be Peter Lang, Trustee Karen Bondar's common law husband. And at a protest outside the Chilliwack School Board meeting, he paraded around in his Jesus costume, shouting F-bombs and profanity, which was very blasphemous. Most of the protesters at that event were Sikh, and they couldn't figure out why we Christians didn't get more upset with his blasphemy. They couldn't believe that you could get away with being that critical of a religion. The Sikhs have quite a bit of respect for Christianity. One of the things that is typical of evangelical Christians nowadays is they think they're going to win people to Jesus by being nice. But what they end up doing is a toxic compassion. They're not warning people that they're about to ruin their lives, they're about to ruin their families, they're about to ruin their sex life. And it's amazing how this transgender movement is so anti-Christian. They especially are trying to influence children, preachers' kids, and children from religious homes into their ideology. And even if those kids are not same-sex attracted, or if they're not suffering from gender dysphoria, they're teaching these kids to agree with the gender ideology and to stand against their parents who still believe in a biblical concept of God created man, male and female, and ordered them to be fruitful and multiply. So they're turning children against their parents. And most churches are fast asleep and they're not pushing back against this. And part of the reason is I believe they're afraid of losing their tax exempt status. Well, already the Liberal Finance Committee had made a strong recommendation that all churches and religious charity groups that fight against abortion should lose their tax exempt status, so they can't issue income tax receipts, and they have to start paying property tax on their church property. And it's coming whether we like it or not. And so I think Christians need to think, what kind of a faith are they going to promote? One that kowtows the government, or one that stands on principle and biblical values?
There you go. So let's find out the degree of blasphemy, mocking, really, that goes on with those that are activists.
Barry Neufeld, it has come to my attention that you are marketing yourself as a prophet, suppressing SOGI education, and pushing a hateful agenda. God does not support you and wants you to stay away from her children. It is time for you to retire and confess your sins.
Okay. So, it just only they can get away with that.
Only they would act like that. Ridiculous.
Well, it was about a year and a half ago, the teachers union complaint had dragged on for 6 years, and they offered to settle outside of court. And I said, well, what do they want? Well, they wanted a public apology. They wanted me to promise to never run for public office again. In other words, retire. They wanted me to take a sensitivity training course so I would understand what transgender is all about. And they wanted me to cough up $50,000 for a gay charity. But at the time, I was being covered by indemnity lawyers, and they said, we think it's a good deal, because don't worry about the $50,000. We'll pay it from your insurance. So I thought about it, and I talked to my pastor, and he said, well, who are you apologizing to? And I says, well, I don't know. They haven't told me what teachers are scared of me. He says, well, if you don't have any names, there's nobody to apologize to. And I said, I have studied this issue for over 6 years. I put more effort into it than I did for my master's degree. And there's no way in a 2-hour sensitivity course that they're going to change my mind. I said, they have no right to tell me I can't run for public office. And even if the $50 isn't mine, I don't want it to go to an organization that's going to encourage kids to mutilate themselves. He said, well, what do you want to do about it? And I said, forgive me, Reverend, but I want to tell them to take their deal and shove it up their butt. And he grinned and he said, well, I agree with you, but I think you should find a nicer way of saying it. So I turned down the offer. I lost legal representation, and I've been trying to raise funds for my defense ever since. I'm going on a road trip in northern BC next month. Once the election is over, I have a lot of support up there. I went down to California and met with Father Josiah Trenum, who's a very strong and powerful voice against this, and asked him to come to Canada and help me. We're organizing a golf tournament, and also going to have a fundraiser in a speakeasy in Abbotsford for some of my non-religious supporters. So that's what I have to do. And, you know, there are a lot of people 10, 20 years younger than me that get up in the morning and they have nothing to live for. Their life has no purpose. And although at the age of 77, my body doesn't want to get out of bed sometimes, I have something to live for. I'm protecting children. I believe that every time I speak out, maybe another family or another child changes their mind. And the whole persecution of me was to try to shut me up. But in 7 years, if anything, I've gotten louder in my opposition to this cult that's destroying our youth and destroying families and extended families.
Yeah, and Barry, again, the reason we're having you on this program is to request that churches, that all pastors across Canada, including the US, support you financially, because you have been to court in a couple of different venues. I want you to speak to that, and then we're going to introduce Karen Bondar. We're going to show who she is, because she then filed a civil rights tribunal complaint against you, and she won. You owe, I believe, you owe her $45,000 because you had the temerity to call her a striptease artist, and we're going to let Karen's own work show that. But in brief, tell us the two different venues. You went all the way to Canada's highest court. So tell us about the court situations you've been involved in.
Well, the first issue was the Support Your Union Workers Union laid a complaint with the BC Human Rights Tribunal that I was a danger to their workers. And that was followed up by the teachers union. A couple of months later, they filed an identical complaint. But John, I spent most of my career working with adolescents, special needs kids, foster children, at-risk kids. And when the president of the union said that I was a dangerous person, I should not be around children, most of the media took that to believe that I was a pedophile, and they accused me of that.
I've been accused of the same thing, right? I've worked with troubled teens, and an LGBTQ radical said the same thing, that Euler's actually a pedophile. So they're going to flip it. They flip these things on us.
I got some funding, and I sued the president of the union for defamation, because that was an insult too far. At my age, to be considered a dirty old man that should be kept away from children, that's the ultimate insult. So anyways, there was a new law in British Columbia. I think it's in a few American jurisdictions, but it's called strategic lawsuits against public participation. And I thought it would benefit me, because a strategic lawsuit, if you can imagine, an old hippie lives out in the forest, and he loves his spotted owls, and he loves to hug his trees. And he sees the logging company completely harvesting all the trees and clear-cutting the land. So he writes a letter to the editor that ABC Logging Company is ruining the land. So the logging company has a whole team of lawyers who go after and sue him for defamation. Anti-SLAPP legislation was supposed to protect little guys like that from frivolous lawsuits by well-funded organizations. But in my case, the president of the union, 50,000 member union, used that new law the first time to fight my defamation case. Justin Trudeau, the prime minister, appointed a special judge to deal with it. And Judge Ross had never heard a defamation case before, and this was a complicated twist on it. So he ruled in favor of Hansman. I appealed that to the Court of Appeal, the highest court in our province. They agreed with me that if I am silenced, it's a dark day for free speech. But then Hansman and the union, who had buckets of money, took me all the way to the Supreme Court of Canada in Ottawa, and they brought along 12 other lawyers representing organizations, tax-funded organizations that support the LGBT agenda. I was in front of 7 judges. 2 judges weren't there. And 6 of them were all recent appointees by Trudeau. And he had already told them what to decide in the case of Barry Neufeld. So I lost that case, ended up with a bill of $220,000, which I have no intention of ever paying. And came back to BC, and now I'm still have to deal with this Human Rights Tribunal case, and it's coming up again on May the 21st.
And that is because of Karen Bondar, is that correct?
No, Karen Bondar was a totally separate issue.
Well, that's right. That one was settled. And how much were you required to pay or are required to pay?
$45,000.
Okay, so we're getting close to $300,000 that you're required to. So again, we want to ask people to help support you to defray these costs.
John, what I've done is I've actually put Barry's link to barryneufeld.com. They can go to the proper link, which is not only accessible through his own website at barryneufeld.com, but you can also go to rightsandfreedoms.org/support-Barry-Neufeld. That's Neufeld. That's at the bottom of the screen. It's been up there the whole show, guys. So people have been able to donate to you all night tonight, and hopefully moving forward, they've written that down, and maybe they'll get their donation into you tomorrow as well.
Well, thank you. You know, this is a national issue, and BC is perhaps the most radical jurisdiction in the world, with maybe the exception of California pushing this agenda. And if I go down, every pastor, every Christian counselor will have to watch what they say, or they're also going to get nailed with hate speech. Once you've been accused of hate speech, you can't run for public office, you can't be bonded. At my age, it's no real big deal, but for a younger person who has to support a family, that could be pretty devastating. So I need people to help me stand against this and protect children.
And I want to show people the kind of things you've been up against. And again, the Karen Bondar case is over. You were fined, as it were, $45,000. So just so people can see who has come up against you, we're going to show a clip of, if I can find it, here we go. This is a anti-Barry Neufeld channel that was up. Let me bring this up. Sorry about that. If I can grab this up here, sorry. Just a moment, everybody bear with me. I've got tech challenges. There we are. Okay. And again, Barry, you're now looking at a $45,000 bill because of this. And we're going to see who sued you. These are the kind of people that have come up against you.
Is he politically local?
Yeah, we also have to talk about school trustees, because a lot of people are going to be going into the booth and picking the trustees they want, and things are getting kind of messy and chilly.
On Tuesday, September the 21st, Mr. Neufeld was a guest on Action for Canada's Empower Hour. During this interview, he referred to me as a striptease artist. I am not a striptease artist, nor have I ever been one.
They strain their lives in vain. We thought, always asking why. Not this much of the world was done, but perhaps no one would deny. You might think you know, only just suppose what you're told isn't true. Facts you can't deny, science doesn't lie, there is actual proof that we're
He's not a very good singer anyway.
no. The feelings turn with no concern with God or religious lies. Diversity, stochasticity, just the fittest survive. Then they procreate and some mutate, every forms are derived. Yes, sorry.
I guess we settled that issue.
Yeah, she's not a striptease artist. And you know,
She's not a
it's
doctor
so
either,
obvious.
is she?
She's has a PhD in studying in forestry, and she studied forest bugs.
Yeah, as a matter of fact,
real
this
doctor,
is Karen
yeah.
Bondar that sued you
I
for
had,
referring to herself as a striptease artist. But Barry, what is she doing right now?
Right now, she's still on the school board. She was reelected, and now school trustees can't be school teachers, but they can be a school teacher in a neighboring school district. So she was hired by Hope Secondary School, which is about 35 miles away, and she now has the opportunity to influence young teenagers in that small community. And she's a libertarian, you know, free sex, anything goes. In one of her political announcements, she wore a T-shirt that said "Legalize everything."
Matter of fact, we're going to continue just a few more minutes. We're going to let her finish this one. Then we're going to see some more of her work. Again, the court has said you owe her $45,000. This is Karen Bondar in her own music and words. Yep, now a striptease artist.
Understanding that it's not a sin. You might think you know, only just suppose what you're told isn't true. 'Cause all good is empty.
You know, this was a parody on Miley Cyrus's movie, I Came In Like a Wrecking Ball. And Miley Cyrus was roundly criticized for setting a bad example for the young teenagers that admired her. And yet, Karen Bondar does it, and she gets praised as being a creative new voice in education.
That's right. Miley Cyrus was criticized. Well, it's going to get better, parents. So now she's teaching teenagers.
She shouldn't be teaching anyone. Well, John, we can't hear any audio, so we should probably just keep talking because there's no audio coming over my speakers at all.
Wow. Okay.
It's like we're just staring at her. So what can we move on to? What's the other video you got of her?
Okay, I'm sorry. You know what? We'll continue. Well, picture. Well, okay. If picture's worth 1,000 words, she was. I should have clicked the button. Anyways, that was Miley Cyrus's song. I don't even know. But then
like
I'm
a
glad.
wrecking ball. It was her new music video she put out about 3 or 4 years ago, and she came out flying on this wrecking ball at an MTV or Grammy Awards thing, and she was naked, and yeah, I mean, it just goes along with the whole Hollywood deviant aspect of the porn industry.
So my apologies. Okay, we got sound now, but again, Karen Bondar is now teaching teens. Here is some of the material she has also produced. Barry has been ruled to pay her $45,000 for having temerity to call her a striptease artist. And it will go into...
During this interview, he referred to me as a striptease artist. I am not a striptease artist, nor have I ever been one. Come and join me, Dr. Karen Bondar, as I delve deep into my favorite topic, animal sex. Do you spend all day dreaming about sex? Well, it's about to get wild. Come and join me, Dr. Karen Bondar, as I delve deep into my favorite topic, animal sex. Ever heard of the phrase, fuck like rabbits? Spiked penises, golden showers, and a 15-meter-long member. This is action like you've never seen before. So from penis snapping to vaginal plugging, if you want head, you'll have to eat your partner first. I'd rather be stuck here in these pants with you than forced to die in a sea of ejaculate. I'd like to talk to you about group sex. No need to be embarrassed. Now, while humans generally accept genetic donations from only one donor at a time, you can see that in the animal kingdom, sometimes it makes sense to be a little whore. This time on Wild Sex, we take the golden shower to a whole nother level, and I find out how far I can pee. There's a whole lot of wild sex going on in the animal kingdom. I think I'm gonna go get me some of that. Let's face it, homosexuality happens. In fact, in the animal kingdom, gay and lesbian sex is pretty much as common as straight sex. Boys on boys, girls on girls, boys on girls, boys on boys on boys on girls. You get the picture. So the next time someone tells you that the natural union is between one male and one female, you might want to remind them that the only added benefit of a male-female partnership is the possibility to produce offspring. If we're going to call natural all the stuff that actually happens in nature, then boys having sex with boys and girls having sex with girls is completely natural. So you see, you don't have to look too far in the animal kingdom to find examples of homosexuality. And it's about time all humans woke up to that.
You gotta pay her, Barry?
This time on Wild Sex, we're taking a look at all the ladies who are engaging in nature's oldest profession, prostitution. Swingers, orgies, three-ways, whatever you want to call it. Don't knock it till you've tried. In this episode, we're talking 50 Shades of Grey in the animal kingdom. Your mother was wrong. Masturbation is good for you, and everyone is doing it. Penises. Ah, the penis. I wonder what image you have in your mind right now. Perhaps one of the human variety, your partner, or one from a particularly memorable one-night stand. Well, human penises are actually quite boring when we compare them to the rest of the animal kingdom. Everybody read them. Everybody read them.
If you're not clear on your invertebrates, don't worry, I'm here to set your knowledge straight. Maybe you're stuck in father, platistically behind. Let's get them straight in your mind. Everybody read it. Okay, so here we go.
Okay, there we go. And if you don't think she's going to not be playing some of her work for the for the classes of biology. I don't know. She's got a lot of things, a library of material that she can play for the teens. Barry, this is the woman that you owe $45,000 to. That's why we're here, to try to help people step up. You have to pay that. Now, as you say, you're not going to, but I want to challenge all pastors, churches, Christians to anybody, all good parents to step up and donate to your defense.
Oh, we've got no audio
Barry,
from you, Barry.
I think you're muted.
Sorry, I was coughing there. That whole wrecking ball video was specifically denied to mock people who believe in creation. Unfortunately, a lot of churches are getting kind of soft on creation versus evolution, but she really pokes fun of them. That was the whole purpose of the wrecking ball video. She is a determined anti-Christian activist, and she has access to the policy governing 19,000 students in Chilliwack, and she has direct influence over classrooms in our neighboring community of Hope.
Barry, you've been a champion.
That woman is the
lead. I so appreciate you. I know we've gone long. Brad, we'll turn it over back to you to go ahead.
That woman is the head of the school board in Chilliwack. Is that what you're telling us, Barry?
She's she's currently the vice chair. She's on the school board. Yeah. And like I say, I don't like it that teachers can teach in one district and be a trustee in another district.
Have the parents not seen these videos that she's making? That was like, what? And you're gonna let that person teach in school?
I can't figure out what happened to parents.
Unbelievable.
They believed everything in the newspaper, that I was a horrible person, and she comes across like all smiles and chuckles and sunshine.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. I'm beside myself. If one of those teachers acted that way, and I saw that in my school division that I'm in, I tell you, I'd be there on their doorstep every single day of the week. I wouldn't leave it. I would harass them and make this change, period.
Yeah.
Well, you're a good man. You know, good things happen when good men do good things, and you're one of those guys. I appreciate everything you've done for Canada and even the town of Chilliwack, all the kids in Chilliwack and throughout British Columbia. You've got to keep standing up, Barry. We can't do this without you, and you've done so much already. I'm going to do everything I can to send people your way, just like I send them Pierre's way. You know, Pierre Barnes, of course, has been challenging all of this as well. And, you know, I send a lot of people every week to Pierre's stuff and information. I'm going to do the same with you, Barry. And let's get you the help that you need to make you stand strong and keep going forward with some support at your side and knowing that you're not alone. Because I'm going to tell you right now, I know you're not alone. But I'm sure you have days when you feel like you're alone, don't you?
You know, I've lost a lot of friends over my stand, but I've gained so many new ones.
Yeah.
And I just feel, I know I'm doing the right thing.
Yep.
And I know that I'm pleasing God, not men. And things are slowly changing across Canada. I wish they'd hurry up because, like I say, there's still a lot of children being molested and abused here in British Columbia because very few people have the guts to stand up against it.
Correct. John, we're running out of time, but any final thoughts for today before we wrap things up?
Well, again, I want to commend Barry for taking a stand, and maybe we'll close with something I wrote. Again, Barry used to be a supervising parole agent of sex offenders. This is our primary concern, that the LGBTQ radical push into this, the whole trans stuff. But this is what's behind the scenes. This is our concern. I call it the Predator Protection Plan. How do you do that? Energetically enable and facilitate porn-fueled sexually deviant men, especially the kind who wear women's underwear and drag. Barry and I have worked with those men to get direct hands-on access into the spaces where women and minors are known to congregate. Aggressively downplay the predatory high-risk red flag indicators of sexually deviant men. Actively mock and play the mindless satanic panic card against survivors of heinous child sexual abuse who begin recalling their traumatic, repressed memories of child abuse, and actively seek to smear, silence, and punish anyone who would dare promote a high bar approach to protecting women and minors from sexually deviant men, and forthrightly unmask the red flags and dangers of such predatory, sexually deviant men. And Barry, that is what you have been doing. You've been taking the arrows, and the least we can do, the least all good people can do, is step up and support you, because you have been fined almost to the tune of getting up to $300,000. And we all need to step up and support you. So thank you on behalf of all good people and parents and women and children.
Well, thanks for your support, John.
Brad, like me, we're left shaking our head, but this is why we do this. Unmasking the trans movement, none of us get paid. This is a labor of love, and you're a good man. Your broadcasting background would be worth thousands of dollars, but you donate to this program. So again, I appreciate you.
Thank you, John. I appreciate that. Without all of us, we can't get this done, and it's going to take a lot more than just us, of course, and that's why we continue to do what we do. And every day we wake up, we think about the children. I'm a hockey coach for 30 years, and that alone speaks volumes as to my character, that says that you mess with the kids and guys like me are going to be on your doorstep. And while that day hasn't come quite yet, I still believe that there just may be that day still to come, because things aren't rectifying themselves here as quickly as they are in the States. It's going to take a good leader. Tomorrow's a big day here in Canada. I think that the election day tomorrow is going to pave way for either a positive outlook as we move forward, or it's going to get worse. One way or the other, tomorrow, by the end of the day, we're going to know, aren't we, Barry?
Yeah.
So get out and vote.
What are you hoping for tomorrow, Barry?
Well, the only political leader in Canada who's spoken out publicly praising me is Mad Max Bernier. So, and the local member of parliament candidate for the People's Party is Jeff Galbraith. He's a close personal friend.
Right.
Years ago, I was a good friend of Chuck Strahl, who was originally Reform and then Alliance. And he was a good man, and you knew where he stood. When he stepped down from office, his son took over.
Mm-hmm.
And Mark Strahl has not been very remarkable. The only remarkable thing he did was give me a Community Hero Award and then say, well, I don't support him. But anyways, so my vote's going to go PPC.
Right. I know that there's a purple wave that they'd love to see happen too, but I'm not sure if that's going to go down that way. No. There's two political parties in this country, and unfortunately they seem to still be at the top. And the grassroots movements that are down lower need to continue to work hard to climb. And with a whole lot of luck, we're going to still be able to do the things that we need to do moving forward. But I know tomorrow is a big day, and if it stays red or turns orange by any means, we're in a whole lot more trouble than we are today. And if it goes blue, I pray he does the right thing, and I'm gonna definitely do my best to hold him accountable as we move forward.
Yeah.
John?
Brad, again, thank you. Barry, thank you. Again, I don't have too many heroes. You are one of my heroes, so thank you. You truly are. It's been David and Goliath, and that's why I believe the Lord is with you, and we will continue to trust and pray that you will be supported.
Thank you.
Many ways.
Thank you both for being here today. It is a pleasure to have this opportunity to spend the last hour and a half with both of you. I know that the Unmasking the Trans Movement viewers are going to get a lot out of this episode. Once again, you can make a donation to Barry. There's the address right at the bottom. It's rightsandfreedoms.org/support-Barry-Neufeld. Help out. Talk to your kids. Make sure they understand what's going on. Make sure you help them understand by being the parent who gives them the knowledge that they need to make the choices and the decisions going forward that are proper for them. I'm Brad Wilder. Till next time, remember, it's not our kids' fight. It's our fight. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.